Okay, so let's dive into something that's been giving me the chills lately. Gmail scams. Remember those Nigerian prince emails we used to laugh at?
Right.
Those were practically quaint compared to what's happening now.
Yeah, what's fascinating and frankly alarming is that we're seeing a new breed of scam powered by artificial intelligence. These aren't your typical phishing attempts with bad grammar and suspicious links.
You're telling me we're talking about scams so sophisticated they can fool even cybersecurity experts. And the scariest part, it's only going to get more common as AI tools become easier to access.
Exactly. Take the case of Sam Mitrovich, a security expert at Microsoft. This is someone whose job it is to stay ahead of these threats, and even he almost fell victim.
Wait, seriously? Okay, I need to hear this. What happened?
He started receiving a series of emails that looked incredibly convincing, like they were genuinely from Google. They warned him about suspicious activity on his account and urged him to take action.
Okay, so pretty standard phishing bait so far.
Right, but here's where it gets really interesting. The emails were just the setup. Next, he started getting phone calls from what appeared to be an official Google number based in Sydney, Australia.
So they're spoofing phone numbers now. That adds a whole other layer of, is this legit panic?
Absolutely. And it gets even wilder. The voice on the other end of the line wasn't some robotic recording. It sounded incredibly real, like you were talking to an actual Google support person. But Mitrovic eventually realized it was an AI-generated voice designed to sound completely authentic.
Okay, that is seriously creepy. Like, straight out of a sci-fi movie where computers are calling to trick us. I mean, this wasn't just a quick message, right? It was a whole conversation aimed at getting him to give up information.
Exactly. And that's the game changer here. AI voice cloning used to be complex and expensive, but now it's becoming increasingly accessible, which means we're likely to see a surge in these hyper-realistic scams.
So what you're saying is, even if we're getting better at spotting dodgy emails, these scammers are already adapting and using AI to exploit our trust in a whole new way.
Okay, even if we were already feeling a little uneasy about online scams, this AI voice cloning thing just took it to a whole new level. I mean, most of us would probably assume a call from Google is legitimate.
That's exactly what these scammers are counting on. They prey on that inherent trust we have in seemingly official sources. But here's the thing, why Gmail? Why are they focusing so much energy on this one platform?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Is it just because everyone and their grandmother has a Gmail account these days?
It's definitely a factor. Think about it. We're talking about over 2.5 billion Gmail users worldwide. That's a staggering number. Even if a tiny fraction of those users fall for these scams, it's a huge payoff for the criminals.
Okay, that makes sense from a numbers game perspective. But there's got to be more to it than that, right? Like what makes Gmail such a valuable target compared to, say, a social media account? It all comes down to what your Gmail account represents these days. It's not just about email anymore. Your Gmail address is often the key to your entire digital life.
It's true. I use my Gmail to log into everything, banking, shopping, social media, you name it. It's practically my online ID card.
Precisely. And for scammers, that's like hitting the jackpot. Once they have access to your Gmail account, they can potentially gain access to a treasure trove of sensitive information. Passwords, financial details, personal contacts. It's all up for grabs.
So in a way, it's almost scarier than someone stealing your physical wallet.
In many ways, it can be even more damaging.
Yeah.
And the more we rely on our digital identities, the higher the stakes become.
Okay, so we've established that these scams are getting incredibly sophisticated and that email accounts are prime targets. But going to Mitrovich's story, how did he eventually figure out it was a scam? I mean, he's a security expert. Surely he's seen it all.
Even the most tech-savvy individuals can be caught off guard. In Mitrovich's case, something about the conversation just felt off. The support person told him that someone had been accessing his account from Germany, which wasn't true.
Ah, so they tried to use the classic scare tactic of making him think his account had already been compromised.
Exactly. And that's when Mitrovich decided to buy himself some time and do a little digging while he was still on the call. He Googled the number, and while it did link back to a Google page, it wasn't a Google support number.
So they were using a real Google number, but not one associated with actual support. That's sneaky.
Exactly. It was a page about Google Assistant making calls, not about their support team. It's a clever tactic designed to make you let your guard down.
That's unsettling. It means even if you're being diligent and checking numbers, these scammers are finding ways to exploit our trust in those seemingly official sources. Okay, so this whole thing is a bit like a digital game of chess, isn't it? Just when we think we're getting wise to the scammers' tactics, they pull something like this AI voice cloning out of their bag of tricks.
Precisely. And that's why awareness is our most powerful weapon in this fight against these increasingly sophisticated scams. Knowing the red flags, being cautious, and questioning everything are crucial.
Absolutely. So let's talk about those red flags. What are some telltale signs that you might be dealing with a scam, even if it seems incredibly convincing at first glance?
Well, as we saw with Mitrovich's experience, unsolicited calls should always raise a red flag, especially if they claim to be from Google. While Google might occasionally contact you by phone, it's extremely rare, and they'll almost always reach out via email first.
So if you get a call out of the blue from someone claiming to be from Google support, it's best to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to hang up and verify the contact information independently through Google's official channels.
Good advice. What else should we be wary of?
Another major red flag is any attempt to create a sense of urgency or fear. Scammers know that if they can get you to act quickly and emotionally, you're less likely to think critically.
So if you get an email saying your account has been compromised and you need to click this link NOW or else,
That's a classic pressure tactic designed to make you panic and bypass your better judgment. Take a deep breath and remember that legitimate organizations will never pressure you into handing over sensitive information under duress.
you also mentioned something in our pre-show notes about Googling your situation. What does that mean exactly?
It's a surprisingly effective way to quickly assess whether something is a scam. Let's say you get a suspicious email claiming to be from Google. Instead of clicking on any links, copy a few keywords from the email and search for them online, along with Gmail scam or Google scam.
So something like Gmail scam, password reset, request unknown device.
Exactly. Chances are, if it's a known scam, someone else has already reported it and you'll find information about it online. It's like crowdsourcing your scam detection.
That's a great tip. I'm adding that to my mental security toolkit right now. Speaking of tips, you mentioned an interesting one earlier, the TAN test. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Right. It's a simple but effective concept. It comes from Gary Tan, who pointed out that sometimes these scams are so outlandish they're almost comical.
This is the part where you tell me he got a call from Google support asking if he was still alive because they received his death certificate, right?
And that's the one. It sounds absurd, but it highlights an important point. Sometimes the best defense against these scams is our own common sense and a healthy dose of skepticism.
So the TAN test is basically, if it sounds too ridiculous to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. Trust your gut instinct. If something seems off, don't be afraid to laugh it off or at least investigate further before handing over any personal information.
I love it. Okay, so we've talked about red flags, but let's get practical. What concrete steps can our listeners take to fortify their Gmail security and protect themselves from these evolving scams?
Well, the foundation of good cybersecurity always starts with strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts. And as tedious as it may seem, enabling two-factor authentication, 2FA, on your Gmail account is non-negotiable these days.
For those who might not be familiar, 2FA is basically like adding an extra lock on your front door, right?
Exactly. It means that even if someone gets hold of your password, they'll still need that second factor, typically a code from your phone or email, to actually get into your account. It adds a significant extra layer of security.
That makes sense. But those articles you shared also mentioned something called session cookie stealing, which, if I'm understanding this correctly, sounds like it could potentially bypass even 2FA. Can you explain how that works and what we can do to protect ourselves?
Sure. Imagine a session cookie as a digital keycard for a website. Once you've logged in, this keycard grants you access without having to enter your password repeatedly. What these particularly sophisticated hackers are doing is finding ways to steal these keycards. So even with 2FA, if they have your cookie, they might slip in right behind you.
Okay, that's a little unsettling. It feels like a bit of a cat and mouse game. Is 2FA even worth it if it can be bypassed?
It's still absolutely crucial. While session cookie stealing is a real threat, it typically requires the attacker to have already infiltrated your device, often through malware. So practicing good cybersecurity hygiene, keeping your software updated, being wary of suspicious links and downloads is still your first line of defense.
So it's about layering those defenses, just like you wouldn't rely on just one lock on your front door if you lived in a high-risk area. Speaking of high security, I read about Google's Advanced Protection Program. What's that all about?
That's like Google's Fort Knox for account security, designed for users who are at particularly high risk of targeted attacks, journalists, activists, those dealing with sensitive information. It used to require physical security keys, which are incredibly effective but not exactly convenient for everyday use.
Yeah, I can see how carrying around a physical key just for your email would get old fast.
Exactly. But the good news is Google recently added support for passkeys to this program.
Okay, passkeys, those are those new digital key things that are supposed to be impossible to phish.
You got it. They're like super secure digital keys that live on your device and are protected by things like your fingerprint or face scan. They're much more secure than traditional passwords and far more convenient than those physical keys. Google is really pushing for wider passkey adoption, and given what we're seeing with these increasingly sophisticated scams, it might be the nudge we all need to make the switch.
I'm convinced. So, as a final thought for our listeners today, what's the one key takeaway from all of this?
Awareness is everything. The more you know about how these scams work, the better equipped you'll be to spot them and protect yourself. Stay informed, be cautious, and remember, if something feels off, it probably is.
Absolutely. Don't let fear paralyze you, but do stay vigilant. Keep those security measures up to date and never be afraid to hit that report button if you see something suspicious. And hey, if you do get that call asking if you're still alive, remember the tan test and have a little laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Laughter is good. It's a great reminder that knowledge and awareness are our best defenses in this digital age.
This has been an eye-opening deep dive into the world of Gmail scams and the AI technology that's changing the game. Remember, you can find links to all the articles we discussed today on our website. And as always, stay curious, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.